Hi, I'm Deb Cinkus with Polished Geek, and I am here today to teach you about UTM Smart Links. They are the way to solve the mystery of how to improve your marketing return on investment. One of the important things for you to be able to grow and adapt and change over the years, as you're going to need to, is to be able to measure what parts of your marketing are working and what parts of your marketing are not doing so great. So you need to be able to measure your marketing ROI. And I'm going to teach you about UTM Smart Links because it's one of the easiest and absolutely free way to be able to do that. Okay, so first let's start with why should you care about UTMs? Like, what's in it for you? I've already kind of given you a teaser, obviously, and I've told you, well, it's going to help you improve your marketing automation. But let's talk about what the problem is, maybe about why you should even want to do this. You're investing a lot of time and money in marketing. And if you're not investing a lot of money, you're definitely investing a lot of time. Like, none of this stuff is stuff that just magically happens, right? You're doing email marketing. You're doing social media, maybe you're doing paid, you're doing content curation and sharing, you're posting your own original content, maybe you're doing guest blogging somewhere, you are creating lead magnets, which are PDFs that people can download on your website that, they may not look at it for a couple of days, but then when they do go back to it, it's all branded and has your information on it. You might be using chatbots like Facebook Messenger or something like that, or Drift or Intercom. Probably doing paid ads, or maybe you want to get into paid ads at some point. You might be placing directory listings out there on the internet and doing other types of networking. Maybe you're even delivering webinars. So you're doing all this stuff that drives traffic into your website. And what you end up with is each of these tools have their own marketing metrics. They all have their own little dashboard of, showing you how this works and how that works, and whether people are clicking and whether people are opening and whether people are sharing your content and that sort of thing. And that's nice, but there's a problem with it. And the problem is, first off, it's in all these different tools, right? There's no one place that it's all being brought together, all coming together so that you can compare how things are going, and so that you can see bigger trends than you could inside any one of those tools alone. So there's no consistent way, if you're not using UTMs, there's no good, consistent, centralized way to be able to track how all these things are doing. That's what UTMs are going to give you. The other thing too is that different platforms like to define success differently. Like, for instance, a lot of things on social media are what I call vanity metrics. Oh, your followers went up today, or oh, you grew another 10%, or you got a few extra likes on your post. But is that actually translating into business? Is that actually bringing you quality leads and people who will buy and people who will convert later for you? So the problem is a lot of the metrics are, they're by the platform's definition of what's successful, and often they are the kind of metrics that are going to make their platform look good, but maybe they're not going to help you manage your marketing very well, right? So there's a lot of vanity metrics around there. So the problem is you've got incomplete, scattered information on all these different systems. You have some platform metrics that might be a smidgen biased, and that leads to you not being able to make the right decision, right? You make maybe bad decisions. Bad data leads to bad decisions, and bad decisions equals poor marketing ROI. You don't know what to improve, right? You're dealing with a sea of marketing data. UTMs are going to help you solve that. Now, UTM actually stands for Erkin Tracking Module. That's the real name of what a UTM is. But what I like to call it, and I think you'll find this a lot more memorable, and it's actually very descriptive, is the ultimate tracking method. Okay, that's what I say UTMs stand for. And that's because when you use UTMs, you're able to drive very detailed information that help you measure your marketing ROI into Google Analytics in one place. No matter that little diagram I showed a few minutes ago with all the different things that you're doing, webinars and lead magnets and everything else, you're able to bring all of that into one place so that you can compare it, so you can track it, so that you can tell what's actually working. UTMs are going to help you do that. They're going to bring everything into Google Analytics for you. And the other cool thing, of course, is they're free to use, other than maybe your time. I mean, of course, time is money, right? So you have to do things that are going to make sense, but UTMs are well worth it. So the only investment is your time, and maybe you might want some software. And there's some free stuff and there's some paid stuff, but in the end, it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's not proprietary. It's a built-in thing that if you do UTMs on your links that you share in your marketing, you're going to get this data. in your Google Analytics. So UTMs, to sum up about why should you care? Why should you be using these? UTMs are going to help you measure your marketing campaign effectiveness across everything you're doing. They're going to let you track and compare that on a granular and at a high level. And that gives you the objective, unbiased information so that you can improve your ROI. And I'll give you an example. UTMs really paid off. So we have a client that was using a different company for paid ads. And this company that was doing the paid ads was charging about $15,000 a month. And they were sending a tremendous amount of traffic to the website. But when this campaign started, we made sure that we instructed the client, make sure they use distinctive UTMs in everything they're doing so that we can parse their traffic out and Google Analytics will really tell you about it. And about 6 weeks in, we felt like there was enough data to start really doing some analysis. And we looked at it and the traffic was high, but it was terrible traffic. It was the worst quality. People were bouncing. People weren't engaging on the pages. They certainly weren't converting on any of the lead magnets. It was terrible. They were just throwing money away. And the other company had been, sharing vanity metrics. Oh, look how many people are clicking. Look how much traffic we're driving. But the quality of the traffic was terrible. And that's what UTMs allowed us to help the client get an objective measurement and end up saving them a lot of money. They obviously stopped using that campaign and they switched and began investing their money in other places. So that's a real life story of how UTMs can make a big difference. All right, so let's talk about what a UTM actually is. Like, what is a UTM Smart Link? What are the pieces of it? We're going to do that with an example of a murder mystery, because the way I like to look at UTM parameters or UTM codes, you'll hear both of those terms, is that they're individual clues. They're individual clues to solve the mystery of your marketing, right? So do you remember the board game Clue? Maybe you played it as a child. The board game Clue was a murder mystery game, and you went around the board and you had to solve the mystery. And the way that you won the game is to realize from all the clues who committed the murder. So you needed to know who did the murder, what room did they do the murder in, what weapon did they use, that sort of thing. And in marketing, just like the game of Clue, we're trying to solve a mystery, right? We're trying to figure things out. We're trying to see patterns. We're trying to see what's working and what's not working. So when you did Clue, when you played the game of Clue, you had different combos. You had maybe one time Miss Scarlet murdered someone with a lead pipe in the billiard room, and the next time you played it was Mrs. White with a lounge, whatever. Those are individual pieces that come together to make a whole. And they are individual clues, right? So if you look at my long URL down here at the bottom of my screen, we have the actual place that I'm going. I'm going to the website, bodymansion.com, and then I have a question mark. That's the beginning of the query to show Google, hey, everything after this is just information. You're going to go to bodymansion.com, and then everything after that is just information I'm sending you, Google, that you get to put inside of Google Analytics for me. So you'll notice I have a campaign, medium, etc. And in this case, I have everyone is committing murders as my campaign, right? Mrs. Peacock murdered someone in the kitchen with a candlestick, and I even added an additional one because I have a fifth UTM term to use called revenge, the keyword revenge for how and why she committed that murder, right? So I'm going to follow this link. I actually have this link here, and I have a real website that comes up, and you'll notice, see all these query parameters in the top of this. These query parameters tell not only Google about that traffic and where that traffic came from and that sort of stuff. It has more clues in there too. There are clues maybe to what I want the website to do. So there's website personalization that can change based on those UTMs. So for example, in this case, see, I have murder, Ms. Peacock. I told you she committed murder in the kitchen with a candlestick, and she did it for revenge, right? If I go up here and I change one of these, let's change this to Mr. Green, and let's change the murder weapon to rope. When my site comes up, I get Mr. Green. I didn't change kitchen, rope now, and doing it for revenge. So you can see each of these pieces is an individual aspect. It's an individual clue. And that's what UTM parameters are. They're just clues to what's going on with your marketing. So here's a diagram of what kind of these pieces look like, right? So I have UTM campaign. It kind of covers everything that's going on. Murder is the entire campaign. And then underneath that are all the individual clues of the source, which in this case is where did it happen, in the library, the hall, etc. And then the medium of who actually committed the murder, those sort of things. So let's put a more marketing-centric kind of example. Let's take this now, this murder mystery, and the individual clues, and let's translate this now into, so what does this mean if you were putting UTMs in an actual marketing link? I would create a marketing link maybe for my summer sizzle campaign. Maybe I'm doing a campaign over a lot of different aspects, and I'm doing it in a lot of different ways on Facebook, and maybe I'm doing things in my email newsletter and things like that. And then this UTM content is, what did they click on? Like, was it an image? Was it the header link? Was it the footer link? Whatever. It kind of tells you what links are working and getting people's attention. And then terms is kind of like a theme. And so it usually becomes like a keyword or a theme or something like that that you can use for additional information. We also sometimes use that for personalization. Like one of the things that is common to put in UTM term for our clients is UTM term equals client. For if someone is already an established client of theirs, maybe they want to display different stuff on their website to them, versus UTM prospect, or versus that UTM term not even being there, right? So the website can understand and recognize that the people came maybe with a different type of relationship with our client. So here's a summary chart, kind of brings it all together for you. Each of the different there's 5 UTM parameters. And 3 of them are pretty much mandatory. You should definitely use these 3 whenever you're doing UTM links. The other 2 are optional. Content and term are optional. I strongly recommend you use them. There where really you get the juicy bits. It's where you really find out what's working. But you know, you can definitely put a viable link out there with just campaign, source, and medium. And so think about this. The campaign is like, why are they clicking? Like, what's a high level thing that you're doing that got their attention? And then UTM sources, where did they see it? Did they see it on Facebook? Did they see it on Google? Did they see it in a webinar or something like that? And then UTM medium is like how they saw the link. Like, was it in an email? Was it in a PDF? Was it in a banner ad? Okay. And then the content and term, I was telling you that those are really where you get the juicy bits of really finding out what's going on. So content should be used for the individual call to action. You know, it should be something meaningful. It shouldn't just be link 1, link 2. It should be something meaningful that you can start to recognize. You know what? We put a newsletter out that's like really long, but people tend to only click the first 2 or 3 links in the newsletter. Tells you basically people aren't reading the whole thing, or only the stuff at the top is getting attention. These are ways you can follow the patterns in your marketing and really find out what's going on. And then term can be definitely used for motivation, keywords, themes, things like that. Now Google will tell you, hey, content term are only reserved for Google Ads. Not true. If you put data in there, it will go into your Google Analytics and you can use it to be able to do analysis or even to run personalization like I explained to you and like you saw on my little Body Mansion website. That was personalization in action. So, and I have on the last row here just showing you where are they found, right? What specifically does that UTM value go into in Google Analytics? And on the next page, I have basically how that whole thing came together. Let's say I'm doing a summer sizzle campaign. I'm putting out a newsletter. Of course, that's seen in an email. The content is that the person clicked on a coupon image and they reacted to one of the newsletters that was with the theme of dresses. Maybe they reacted better to that than, evening wear or something like that. So this is how the link looks when you pull it all together. It doesn't matter what order you put these UTMs in as long as they're there. Okay, so you can move them around. I tend to put them in the order of the hierarchy like the diagram I showed you, but you don't have to do that. As long as they're there, Google will pick them up and pull them into your analytics. And they go in several different places, like source medium goes into the classic source medium. So you can see here, like I've got, I've got Colonel Mustard committed 5 murders in the dining room, right? So he might have used different weapons, he might have used, different motivations or whatever, but I know that he did that, right? So I can slice and dice by those pieces of information. My keyword stuff, I was using UTM term for that. That's where my greed and jealousy and stuff goes. And then I was using content for my weapon. right? So this is how my murder mystery clues end up in my Google Analytics so that I can then slice and dice. And here's one example of how you can do that. You take, you can derive audiences. You can set up audiences inside Google Analytics by these different values, by any of these UTM values, and say, only show me how people behaved when they had this UTM value versus that UTM value. And so in this particular example, I have a screenshot of the Mrs. Peacock versus the Mr. Green. And how did those audiences behave differently? Did they click on what I wanted them to? Did they visit the pages I wanted them to? Did they stay on the site? Did they bounce? What was their average number of pages per session? All that stuff can be compared and analyzed. Okay, so you've now seen why you should use UTMs. You've gotten a good feel now for what is a UTM link, what is a UTM smart link with the UTM parameters, and a little bit of an understanding of what does each one mean. So how do you get started, right? So there's 3 easy steps. It's not hard. You just have to plan out your strategy. You have to create a naming convention. I'll explain in a minute why that's really important. And you got to be consistent. You got to use them over and over. So let's talk about planning your UTM strategy. You got to define your business goals. What is it you're trying to measure? What is it you want to achieve? Maybe you want to save some money on that paid advertising and you want to attack that first. Maybe you just want to be able to understand better what parts of your social media market is working better. So you have to determine what your business goals are and then make a list of all your marketing resources. What's all the MarTech that you're using? Are you using Hootsuite for social? Are you using Drip for email marketing? Are you using other tools, right? What's all your paid advertising going on? What are all your lead magnets? Most of the time when people start using UTMs, they got to go back to their PDFs and actually insert links with real UTMs in it. Most people don't think to do that first. And then you need to look at what are you planning on doing? What is your recent marketing campaigns? Look at those and go, if I was to go back and UTM that, how would I do that? And then what are your planned upcoming marketing campaigns? You need to basically do a big inventory of what you have and look at that in the perspective of what are you trying to achieve. And then you also want to look at what behaviors on your website are going to be things that you're going to want to compare this UTM traffic to. Like I've talked about, you can track it and you can see how these audiences behave, but what then are you going to be looking for? So we strongly suggest that you also spend a little time thinking about what behaviors on the website tend to be associated with a customer, someone who converts at some point to becoming a customer, because there's a part in between when they visit your website and when they actually convert, whether that's filling in your lead form or whether that's buying and checking out in your e-commerce store. There's a time in the middle where people who are serious and evaluating you, who are further down in the funnel, they're thinking strongly about doing business with you, there are behaviors that they exhibit on the website. They might watch videos, they may engage longer on the website and the blog, they may visit a certain number of pages. So there are things like that that you want to be thinking ahead about, and then you want to establish those as Google Analytics goals in your GA setup so that you can then later, when you start doing these UTMs, you can say which parts of the UTM are associated with people performing these goals. Remember I talked earlier about this client that we had that had high volume of traffic, but it was terrible quality. That's what we did. We looked at what behaviors are they exhibiting on the website and looked at, are they achieving any of the goals and stuff? And we were able to show that that traffic was extremely low quality traffic. Just because they came to the site didn't mean they really were serious or people who were actually good fits. They weren't good quality leads. So you want to know what those things are. You need to be thinking ahead about what are those things I'm looking for that I'm going to compare this UTM traffic analytics against, okay? And then you have to create a naming convention. It's very important that you be consistent in your naming because, they're going to go in exactly like you put them in, okay? You misspell them, they're going to go in that way, right? So it can be a little easy to screw up if you're doing them all manually and you're doing, question mark and then spelling out UTM campaign and spelling out UTM medium and having to do the ampersand. It's really easy to make a mistake. So there's a free UTM generator where you can put the right things in and Google will give you the UTM that you should use at the end. Ta-da, there it is, right? Another thing is you can just use an Excel or a Google Sheet with a little generator on the side. There's a bunch of those online. Or there are UTM management tools that will allow you to set specific things that are allowed so that someone can't actually spell something wrong or whatever. And I did mention spelling, it's case sensitive too. email with a capital E is not the same as emails. They're going to end up in different sections of your Google Analytics. They're going to show up as different things. It's going to be really annoying for you to try to go back and put that data together. It's not like it can't be done, but it's going to be annoying, right? So you want to always use lowercase, and you want to think about the fact that it's case sensitive, and you want to make sure you spell it right? Don't let one of your team abbreviate Facebook as FB and somebody else spell it out as Facebook, or the data is going to go in two different places. So consistency there with the naming convention is very important. And also, if you want to have separate words, you may have noticed in the way that I did this already, use a hyphen or a plus sign. Don't use an underscore. Okay, so you want to use like summer dash sizzle or summer plus sizzle to be able to have those separate. And you don't want to do an underscore. So the underscore goes in the actual parameter. So like UTM underscore campaign equals, and then summer dash sizzle. Okay, so the hyphen in there in the middle. So the naming conventions are very important to make sure that your data goes where you expect it to, and that you're not going to have to spend a lot of time retroactively trying to add things together that should have all been spelled the same and have the same case. Now, be consistent on using UTMs everywhere you can. Anywhere that you have control over an external marketing link, put a UTM on it. Everywhere, directory listings, everything that you can control. Except, never, never, never put a UTM inside your own website. Because when someone clicks a UTM inside your website, Google goes, hey, new visitor, and terminates the old session and counts them as if they're a new person who just landed. So you don't want to do that. Okay, you're splitting the traffic and the history, and you're kind of destroying your data. So never use UTM'd links inside your website. They're only for external marketing that points to your website. Okay, that's very important to know. And if, like I said, if you can control the external UTM it, and it's going to take some time, but you can't go back and retroactively apply them. Like you can never go back and get that data again. So it makes sense to sit and plan it out. Make sure you have a good naming strategy, and then put them everywhere you can and start using them. And within a month even, you'll start having some data that's usable. And over time, you're going to build more and more and more and more. It's going to be extremely valuable, but you have to take the time to put those UTM links out there in the world so that when people click them, Google starts learning about your audience. I've really enjoyed teaching you this today. Here's my contact information of how to get a hold of me, and I hope to be talking with you soon. Have a great day.